All right, hail cheaters! Welcome to the Always Cheating Podcast. Early start today. I've been doing some more of these recently. It's kind of nice, It's 2:00 in the afternoon, sunny day here in Brooklyn. You are upstate New York today, right?
In the beautiful Butternut Valley, yes. Yeah. And we've got sunshine and snow. It's a winter wonderland. Drinking a seasonal cider from Awestruck. It's the winter solstice. So we're pagans in this household.
That sounds perfect. Sorry, my family is departing as we start the pod here.
Absolutely. We're family men. That's a great thing to stuff in at the start of the pod, just to let everybody know that we're relying on your download to feed our families.
Yeah, exactly. It's nice to start off with I know they did one of those. We actually went to see a show yesterday. It was a Little Shop of Horrors, and at the end they stopped everything to do a little a plea. It was for Broadway Cares, which is a slightly different thing. That is actual charity as opposed to pretend charity, which is what supporting the podcast is. But anyway, let's jump into it, Brandon. Game week 13, pretty exciting week, I'd say, both from a fantasy perspective and a just regular kind of game week perspective. Obviously, the Liverpool Man City match ended about an hour ago, and it was, I guess, it was kind of what I expected in the end. I guess I thought it would be even maybe a little less one-sided. I suppose I did certainly favor Liverpool to win, given both squads' respective forms. But I thought kind of my immediate I have two takeaways. Both kind of Holland related, surprisingly. Okay. First is that he was in the best mood. It was incredible. I mean, and I don't mean to be a body language person. He's allowed to be in a good mood. You don't have to pretend to be mad if you're not mad or whatever. I hate when people get on that, but it was just so funny. He was joking with everybody on Liverpool, having a laugh with teammates old and maybe in the future. He and Salah were chuckling about some stuff. And I was like, man, for a team that's getting destroyed, Holland is just love it. I don't know if he's disassociating. I don't know what's going on here with him, but congrats to him. Whatever he had, for breakfast that morning, he was in a great mood. Yep. My second thought was that you can be the literal best striker in the world. And if your midfield is crocked, then you are basically worthless. It's remarkable, right? Because he's not a Harry Kane. Holland is a brilliant player. And, so I'm not negging him really, but he's not a Harry Kane type, right? He's not going to go back and win the ball.
Mobile.
Not often. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's a little less mobile. He can do it. I mean, it's not like he's it's not like it's impossible for him to get a tackle, but he's not really the type who's going to Gabriel Jesus style or something, right? Go back and win the ball, drive down, receive it back, whatever, right? It's just not really, it's not even how the Man City squad is really set up to help him. But it's just, I just can't believe it's come to this, right? Where there's it's Gundogan seems like the only player who's trying to do something out there, right? And he wasn't even in the squad to start the season. And it's he's the only one who's I don't even know, sort of putting some pressure on the opposition's defense, right? It's kind of shocking. I mean, Phil Foden is I don't even really know. I don't know if this whole season is just he's cooked or if he's going to eventually come back or what. I mean, I will say, the Saka versus Foden, who's this generation's best player, this kind of current, that is resolved at the moment, right? It's clearly Saka. But I don't know, maybe Foden will come back eventually. Who knows what the deal is there.
It was a great game, just if you're thinking about squad building and squad management, because Liverpool take each of these like moves in isolation. Cody Gakpo didn't start regularly under Klopp. Was this a good move, a bad move? Darwin Nunez, Gravenberch, all of these guys, including players that Liverpool have brought through their academy. And you look at the Liverpool squad today, even under a new manager who's never managed in the Premier League, it's like this is a deep, sophisticated squad that has lots of options and play styles. It's fantastic. And then you look at City with 6 titles under their belt under Pep, and the squad is a mess. And it's like an indictment of how they've run that squad over the last 3 years. Some bad injuries to, like the Ballon d'Or winner among them. And suddenly they're dead in the water. And you've got Bernardo Silva and Gundogan in a double pivot. And it's bad. It's really bad. And your Haaland point, on this weekend of all weekend in the United States, which is all about feasting for Thanksgiving. This man is starved of any
he really is
any action.
Nothing.
The pitch,
there's nothing. There's nothing happening for him.
Yeah.
It's kind of bizarre.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, because I suppose the big talking point from a fantasy perspective is we finally got. We've been advocating on this podcast for the last few weeks for getting 3 out of 4, right? Like there are 4 kind of amazing, very expensive players, somewhat hard to own players in your squad, and we kind of ultimately came down a few weeks ago. Just everything, all of your moves, all of your planning should be to get 3 out of these 4 players, and in fact, I kind of hurt myself by hesitating for a week to do that, right? I didn't get Saka until this week. I wish I had done it, last week. And but you and I finally both brought him in. We both were rewarded immediately with returns. And now I wonder if it's just the 3, right? And by the way, those 4 are Haaland, Salah, Saka, Palmer, right? And so Palmer had been starting to worry me a little bit, right? Like he was looking at maybe 4 consecutive blanks. He did get an assist late in the first half, which made me feel a little less anxious about another. Well, I mean, obviously at that point he's not blanking that week, unless he gets a red card or something. I don't even really know. Misses a pen and gets a red card, but then he gets a really nice goal at the end too, which sort of sets him up perfectly, right, for game week 14, where they play Southampton. And I think that although Southampton have been a little friskier, right? You kind of have to keep your, it's easy to if you're not paying too much attention, to just kind of rest on your laurels and be like, this team always concedes a million goals. This team doesn't. Yeah. And although with that said, the new version of they are frisky is Wolves, right? Yeah. It was like, oh no, they figured things out. Like it might be time to bring in Aït-Nouri, and then it was like, nope, this
triple
is still
up.
Yeah, exactly.
Cunha, Strand Larson, Aït-Nouri. Let's go.
Strand Larson at least would have worked out. I think you would have had was it a brace from him? At least a goal in it.
You had an 11-pointer. Yeah. However you get to 11 points, that's up to you.
Yeah, I think that's a goal, assist, and 2 bonus. But yeah, it was that was a very interesting match as well. I think it was a hat trick of getting fouled in the box for Evan Nilsson. Yes. You rarely see that, and rarely do you see the forward not really make any particular move to take the pen himself. Like I know Kluivert's on pens. But
sure, right, yeah. And Evan Nilsson had missed a pen earlier in the season, so maybe that makes him doubly deferential to Kluivert when he's on the pitch.
Yeah. I mean, if this were Arsenal, they would have been shuffling those pens around like Raya.
Get in line. It's just a cue. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
You're up, Raya. Let's go.
So, but obviously, Saka was great. That was a wild match too. That was,
you couldn't look away without Arsenal scoring a goal or winning a pen, and Saka was gone Super Saiyan. Of course, it's easy to reflect on this without too much pain after Salah got his goal and an assist, but you just how I really was closer than I actually was to captaining Saka. Surely I was.
Yeah.
Because he could have, if he had taken that pen that he gave to Odegaard, just looking at one of those seminal hauls.
I mean, there is some value in looking back at the decision, and debating whether it was the right one or not, right? I think, just in the sense moving forward, is it do we want to just kind of default to Salah all the time? These guys they're all great as we're saying, right?
Sure. The problem with game week 12, or the hard thing about game week 12, is everything went to script. Even the City performance and Haaland blanking, it's sort of it's just a continuation of what we've learned over the last month.
Right.
And even though there were lots of signs pointing to Saka, we just knew that Salah was in form. Why not captain him as well? And it all went according to script. Salah got his points as predicted. And then Saka and Palmer did the same. And the armband was split between those 3 guys. So what did we learn? We learned that just basically you got to have these 3 guys.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much. And the question now is how do you kind of fill out the rest of your roster, right? Because I think the kind of the corresponding kind of problem this week is that all of the kind of like less expensive players that you would use to fill up your squad, right? You've got to start 11, so one way or the other. They kind of all blanked. I mean, I look at my team for this week, and it was. So I have let's see. I had a good week. I finished on. Once the auto subs all come in, it looks like I'm going to be on 83 points, which is enough for me to move up a couple 100,000 spots. But it's basically, Solanke injured, or I shouldn't say injured, but ill. But Jimenez blanks again, and Mboma blanks again. Rogers blanked, Robinson blanked. Kansa, Gavardiol, Henderson, of course. I mean, Henderson is just an auto blank, right? Like anybody who's, woe be any of us who have to start this clown every week. But so I think it is a little tricky to figure out. I sort of hope. My hope now is that now that I've sort of done the work of getting this trio of players in, and I'm sort of resolved not to have Haaland for a while. Now I can start to maybe do some of this like mixing and matching, where I just sort of maybe target certain cheap players for like a mini run of difficult, or a mini run of easy fixtures, right? When the player I'm taking out has difficult fixtures, and sort of like almost like luxury moves, right? It's sort of, I can sort of focus on these like luxury moves now.
Right, totally. And I finished on a green arrow as well, but had this similar woes where all of my points came from Palmer, Salah cap, and Saka. And the only other guy who stood out and did anything was Chris Wood, who is actually the guy I'm most likely to transfer out ahead of Tuesday's deadline. Like I'm looking at Nico Jackson, Chelsea with that Southampton fixture. And it was a horrible day, a horrible Sunday. Like I had Salah cap, which is fun, but all my other guys were defenders. Robinson, Mikolenko, Pedro Porro, and it was just like waiting for the dominoes to fall and for all of my points to get taken away. Fair enough. I
started to like talk myself into maybe getting a clean sheet because I had to start Robinson this week as well, and I think like ultimately we were more or less validated in not making a transfer, like an extra defender. Like I would have had to burn 4 to bring in 8 Nori, right? Who would have picked up 0 points in the match, if not negative. No, he wasn't in the yellows. So yeah, 0 from 8 Nori.
I was looking at Timber for my defensive transfer, which would have been like the peak, like kicking yourself when you're like, no, I'm going to go for the guy who,
slightly cheaper,
still looks good. And then Gabriel comes and does Gabrielle things.
Yep. Goal, assist, halftime sub, just hilarious. So
how to make a 9-pointer from your defender feel bad somehow.
He's in that classic zone now where it's like, you don't quite know. Like if you own him, you just keep starting him every week. And if you don't own him, you don't necessarily want to bring him in because he's flagged. It's a real like kind of danger zone spot for a player. The other defender you might have looked at would have been someone on Brighton, right? And they conceded to Southampton. Just trying to think of like any other. I suppose Forrest, Aina once again in the bonus. I mean, you have been talking about this guy for weeks and weeks.
I should get him, right?
I know I should get him too. Like I think he might actually be in the top 5 defenders now at this point. Let me see. Yeah, I mean he's up there anyway, and he's third. He's third overall for defenders.
It's incredible for a guy who's just not talked about at all. The issue there with Forrest and why I'm kind of looking at Chris Wood out is their upcoming run of fixtures is horrible.
Yeah.
Arsenal. Sorry, I have to update my fixture ticker here. We're looking at City in midweek, followed by Manchester United, Villa.
Maybe not so bad, actually, in that case.
Okay. Yeah, fine. Yeah, fair. I mean, what do we do with City now as a fixture? We don't have any City guys, but okay, then this is a perfect case study for fantasy managers right now. We have Forest assets. They're going up against City away at the Etihad. Is this something like, am I benching Aina Am I playing Chris Wood? What's the?
I mean, you're probably benching Anna. I would definitely start Chris Wood. I mean, there's just no. Like, I don't know how you could look at. And also, I mean, I kind of wonder if Kyle Walker won't start at midweek either, right? Because that's a pretty quick turnaround for a kind of older player, right? Who's getting his minutes. Although he wasn't. No one was good on their defense today, right? It was a terrible performance. Even with the kind of extreme subs. I mean, I didn't think that. That like anyone who kind of came in and in replacement was any better, right? I mean, Ortega, he was, I don't know, was he good? He was not really, right? He conceded a pen, and I don't remember him making any like especially good saves in the match or anything like that.
No, he was bailed out by some poor finishing by Mo in particular when he had that incredible break, and like that was a bad fantasy moment for captainers, for sure.
Oh, and the marking in corners. I mean, Virgil van Dijk could have had a brace today, right? I mean,
Van Dijk was all over set pieces, right?
Two unmarked headers that he just whiffed on. It was a 2-0 match that I actually haven't seen the. Actually, I know I'm curious enough. I'm going to pull it up on FootMob. Yeah, let's. Yeah, what was your guess? Do you think the Liverpool had an XG over 3.5 in this match?
That just feels like right to me. 3.5. I would say right around there.
Yeah, I'm going to say 3.59 is my guess here. 3.35, still quite good. And that's with 2 goals scored in the match. Man City had a 0.82 xG. I'm trying to remember like their golden chance that got them up to a 1 xG. I don't feel like I just really saw anything like a significant.
Like a few times the ball was ping ponging around the 18-yard box. Holland got on the end of one, but it was kind of blocked. It was Liverpool were just very like sound positionally.
Yeah, it was just a tough,
do you know what it was? It was probably Kevin De Bruyne's chance when Van Dijk was just like ponderous on the ball and lost it to De Bruyne, and he was clean through, and Kelleher prevented it from going through his legs.
Maybe that. And I guess you had the Lewis half chance as well, where he kind of scuffed it a little bit. Actually, I feel like he actually had a fairly decent chance to score there. Had a lot of goal to his left and couldn't do anything with it. So all right. Well, let's talk about some of these mid-priced options. I'm going to name a player, Brandon. You can tell me 1 to 10 what your concern level would be. Okay. I've just got 4 here, but you tell me what your concern level would be. Actually, I'm going to throw a couple micro injured players in here as well. So it's going to be 6 total. All right. So 10 being most concerned, 1 being least concerned. Okay.
How about their fitness?
It depends. It could be anything. Form, fitness, whether you'd be comfortable starting them in game week 14 or at least holding them long term. Okay. All right. So we're going to start things off with Mbomo, Brian Mbomo.
Concern level 7.8.
Okay. 7.8 out of 10. So pretty high.
Pretty high.
Yeah.
He and Brentford don't perform away from home. And he's just not, even when Brentford are working, he's really not participating at this point.
Hasn't taken a shot in like a year. It seems like I think he now has 1 shot in his last 4 matches. Wow. So which is just shocking. I mean, he's playing so far out wide as well. What's weird about it is I actually watching these matches. I am weirdly like interested in getting Johan Vissa. It's like I'm less excited about Mbomo. Well, nothing weird about it, but just like it's funny that I'm like dropping. I think like dropping Mbomo something I could consider doing as early as this week. Yeah. But just funny to bring in the player that he is in theory providing crosses to. I feel like he got a little unlucky not to get the assist because
agreed.
It's not clear to me that cross was intended for, I guess, Vissa in the box, right? It was just kind of like a cross into the box.
Classic thought crime, Opta, right there.
Yeah, exactly.
How do you know what's in a man's mind?
I know, because they'd already called an assist too, so they went into it and were like, "No, he didn't mean to do that." And I'm like,
"It's mean spirited, honestly."
Yeah, but it's too punitive.
The other option I was thinking of just for my own team was Mbomo to Bruno Fernandes, but I am spooked by this Arsenal fixture that Manchester United have midweek, and I'm happy. What I would likely rather do is just bench Mbomo.
Yeah, I think that I would. I actually don't know what I'm going to do yet. I mean, the problem is, I mean, it's if it's Villa without. I mean, you're right about them being like poor away from home, but if it's if Debu is out for Villa, they really haven't been performing especially well
They
defensively.
haven't, no.
So I wouldn't like. I would say my concern level is more like it's a little lower. I mean, I guess there's like real life, like real life versus fantasy, right? Like I think he's actually been fine. Like I think he's playing pretty well. He's got the ball a ton on the right. Like it's not like I don't watch these matches and think, oh man, like Mbomo is just in horrible form, right? It's just not translated into fantasy returns. And so I guess like from a fantasy perspective, I'm going to call it like a 6.5. I did pull up the upcoming fixtures here. I'm just using the fantasy sites set of fixtures here. I mean, their next four are not great. Like I think if you had the luxury of a couple of transfers, no other problems, I do think moving him on would be fine this week, right? It's Villa away, Newcastle at home the following weekend. Chelsea away the weekend after that. I don't think it's a high priority though, because he's such an important player that with midweek matches and weekend matches, he's one of the few players on my squad who I am rock solid certain will start, the next two matches. And there is a lot of value in that.
And to state the obvious, him being on pens, you can easily just fall backwards into a 9-10 pointer.
Yeah, exactly. He could have had returns yesterday. He probably should have, right? So, so maybe, I think a 6-ish is warranted. I don't think that it's like it's still not like danger zone. All right, next player is, and this one's maybe like a little harsh because he did well the week before. But João Pedro, 1 to 10. How do you feel about João Pedro?
Well, having just brought him in this week I'm just chasing the Southampton fixture, like you were saying earlier, with thinking about Nico Jackson for midweek, game week 14. He's a low priority, low concern. I'd put him at like a 3.5.
Yeah.
Because, he's not necessarily he's close to being the Mbomo of Brighton in that he has pens. He plays more centrally, which makes him even more central to Brighton's attack, you would say, than Mbomo.
Yeah.
And it's just, he's a funny fantasy asset because being in and out with injury at the start of the season, I feel like if you like map the data, it's just like up and down, like an EKG meter. So I don't really have like the best read on the consistency of João Pedro. Obviously, I'm going to run with him since I've just brought him in.
I thought he was. I mean, yes, I agree, and I would put him very low on my concern meter. I would put him at like maybe like a 0, honestly. But I will say he was not. I did not find him to be especially involved in the Southampton match, and I think that is disappointing. Like I felt like he was actually weirdly peripheral in that match. Maybe he was just marked really well or something. But
I think what it was, you've got Matoma who had a decent game on the left, and it was a very wide game for Brighton. Right. And then when the ball came central, Welbeck was there, and Pedro's just kind of like orbiting around what everything else is happening, and it's kind of just like waiting for the ball to squirt out to him, or he's the one who's diverting the defenders to free space for other guys. So I agree. Yeah, it was not a great game for him to show off.
Disappointing match for Brighton, though, if they want to kind of actually push on and try to get a European spot this year. All right, next player is Cunha. Another blank from Cunha. Now, the thing about Cunha is not so much that I think Cunha is suddenly a bad fantasy asset. What I guess or certainly he's not. But is Strand Larson actually, and I don't mean to be like prisoner of the weekend or whatever, but is Strand Larson actually the one, if you didn't have either one, that you should be going for here? It is tricky, right? Because Cunha is a little bit of like a João Pedro situation, right? Where it's like, I don't know, it's because you have Cunha like on free kicks and things like that, but Strand Larson is the central forward in their attack.
I don't know. You ask. I think when Cunha was on the menu a couple weeks ago, it was a great debate: Strand Larson or Cunha, and I think the people who favored Cunha were justly rewarded. And I think what I've seen over the last 3-ish weeks still makes me feel like if you're going to stick with one of these two guys over the next month, because Wolves fixtures coming up are still fantastic. It's Everton, West Ham, Ipswich, Leicester in the next 4.
Yeah.
I do think Cunha is going to come out with more points than Strand Larsen does.
Yeah, I think so too. I think it's not a great match for Cunha. Even his underlines were really poor as well, considering how open that match was. 0.1 xG, 0.07 expected assist, whereas Strand Larsen, well, yeah, I guess for him, it's he did score 2 goals actually, 2 goals with 2 bonus. Did he get a yellow card or something? Yeah, I guess that's how he ended up with 11. Although, yeah, he was his underlines actually aren't that great either, and they're really poor the 2 weeks before that. Yeah. So I think I think you're right. I think I would still lean towards Cunha of the two. If I were to, Everton away, West Ham away, Ipswich at home, Leicester away, Man United at home. I mean, I think they're both still strong buys. I put Cunha at like 1.
Right. What about a double up? I mean, Wolves, they're a weird fantasy team right now because the fixtures have lined up so beautifully for them. But the Bournemouth fixture reminded us Wolves are not a great team in the Premier League table.
Feels a little too extreme for me.
Agreed.
It would be fun to have one. I think having a Wolves player before this weekend would be fun. They play a Monday match in game week 15 over the weekend, away to West Ham, and then it's home to Ipswich the following weekend and away to Leicester. So you can basically go right up until Christmas with having a Wolves forward for this really fantastic run. And the problem with doubling up too is you almost immediately are going to want to start dropping them because they have a really bad run after the holidays. Really tough run of fixtures ahead. So okay, let's see. Do I have? This one's going to hit home for me, unfortunately, Brandon. Raul Jimenez.
Yeah,
another blank.
He did have a fantastic game against Spurs. I thought he was doing a Gabriel Jesus sort of performance where he was chasing every 50-50 ball, winning lots of duels. It's just like the ongoing problem for him and for Fulham is they're not great finishers at the moment.
Yeah. 4 blanks and 5 for him. Hasn't scored a goal since game week 8. So, I mean, he's certainly at the top of my list of potential transfers out. I plan to I have him and Vardy, so they really both need to go as soon as possible. But Vardy, I do plan to start at midweek over Jimenez, bench Jimenez, just because Vardy does play West Ham at home. He was subbed off early. I thought honestly, I got him off the bench for Solanke, and I feel pretty lucky to get the 5 points there. But he created a great chance. I don't know if you were watching that.
It was really good heads up from him just to be that close to goal, and your instinct is look for your teammate.
Yep. And subbed off at the 63rd minute as well. So when the match was pretty much out of hand. So I think that's a good sign for him starting at midweek. And so, I mean, I guess there is the new manager concern. So I guess that would be the one, like whether Van Nistelrooy will immediately bench him. But I don't know why.
I can't imagine he would. I'm with you. I like Vardy for game week 14.
All right, and let's see. That gets me through the So Jimenez, I guess if I were to rank him, my concern level is pretty high. I'd say. Let's look at the fixtures upcoming for Fulham. They're terrible, right? I mean, it's so quite high. I mean, he moves to Cunha so easily. So so I'll either do it this week or at midweek or at the weekend. I'll probably move him to Cunha. I would say that my Jimenez worry is like a 9 at the moment. It's like area. I mean, how high does your concern level have to be to transfer a player out? I'm saying 8 and above. You've got to be really serious about it, right? And so if I put Jimenez at 8 and Mbomo at 6, then it feels like decision making is clear for this week.
Trust the numbers there for sure.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So, and then concerns for Solanke and Isak. Solanke actually showed up today and was sent home, too sick to play, said his manager.
That's harsh. He couldn't just he couldn't just sit in the box with his buddies. He had to go home.
I didn't want to he didn't want them to. I don't know. You want to translate the flu or whatever?
Somebody puts their hand in Solanke's popcorn bucket, and suddenly everyone's got hepatitis.
Yeah, exactly. We don't want a hepatitis outbreak if we can. So they don't play until Thursday, Spurs. So it's probably fine to hold them. The only problem is because they don't play until Thursday, and this next game week kicks off on Tuesday. So once again, the next game week kicks off literally almost exactly 48 hours from us recording this today.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a little tricky. I mean, hopefully we'll get some news by Tuesday, whether he's fit. I just imagine if he showed up, then he should be okay to play, but we'll see.
Yeah. Long term, like Solanke, I feel like it's not been a fun time to own Solanke since he had that one great performance against Villa.
I have not had anything, and I didn't even have him for that. I've had nothing from Solanke. He's been trash, honestly. I mean, he's again, it's a little bit like Mboma. He's played fine. I don't, it's like I'm not watching these matches thinking, oh my God, Solanke is like the weak link in this squad, right? But so the other one is Isak, who came off in the 21st minute for Newcastle. It was interesting. There was a question somebody asked us ahead of this pod, but what to do with him, or like, it never seems to work with him. And I guess my feeling about Isak is that he is appropriately priced, right? It's like you get exactly what you pay for with him, which is that you get a 10, like a double digit quality forward, right? With an 8.5 million performance level, right? It's like you're getting like, it's like right.
That's a good way of framing it.
Yeah. You're going to get a lot of injuries. You're going to get a lot of blanks when you shouldn't. At the end of the season, you're going to get like 16 to 18 goals. Like it's going to be a good season overall, but those could come in bunches, right? It's like, it's hard to, he is not a very fun player to own in fantasy, in my opinion. He's just not consistent enough.
Yeah, I do think like if you're going to try to make a case for him, I do think he's generally fixture proof. Like he's not scared by defenses, and he's coming up against Liverpool in game week 14 at Anfield. The quote on his injury was, it was a contact injury, not a muscle pull, which is good news for us. We hope he will recover quickly. But at this moment, guess what he says? I don't know.
Yeah. And how is a liar anyway? So it's like impossible to know.
Yeah. It's funny, like, what is the opportunity up front? Like, I feel like it's easy to dismiss a lot of forwards. Isak out for who? Like, what is the big forward priority at the moment?
Oh, like if you were going to drop him? Well, I would only drop if he were truly injured. I think the two that I would look at would be Evan Nilsson or Cunha or Strand Larson, if you want to be a little different. But I do think that Evan Nilsson is an underrated, still underrated. He's only 2.2% owned in the game, and he's up to 4 goals and 4 assists on the season, which isn't that amazing, but that does include 3 goals and 3 assists in his last 5 matches, which includes some pretty difficult matches too. It includes goals at Man City, a goal home to, a goal away to Villa, and a goal home to Man City. And so he's honestly been, his returns in the last 5 weeks, 12 points, 2 points, 8, 7, and 8. So kind of almost the opposite of what we've been saying about Isak, right? It's like, and so they play Spurs in game week 14, which the FPL site has given a 4 on the difficulty ranking. I guess that means that's like if you're starting like Bournemouth defenders, but if you're starting Bournemouth forwards, this Spurs fixture is like a 1 or a 2. Like it's like they're going to score multiple goals in this match. 100%.
Fraser Forrester's performance against Fulham was quite odd in that he made some great clutch saves, and you couldn't say he was at fault for the Kearney goal. That was just like a great finish. But the act of him making these saves looked like the most uncomfortable things that any goalkeeper has ever done. Just sort of like, can I just lay here for a minute and you guys just go and kick the ball around while I work myself up, like getting off the ground? He's just a huge man, a mammoth man. But I guess to your point about Bournemouth's chances of scoring against Spurs this on Thursday, I like it. Like no starting center backs, backup goalkeeper who's weird. It's cool.
Yeah, I mean that's actually an interesting question between Evan Nilsson and Cunha. If I were to go for one of the two, God, they're honestly they're both great picks. I mean, I could just spend my next two transfers just moving those two players, honestly, because once you get past the Spurs fixture, it's Ipswich away, West Ham at home, Man United away, Palace at home. Even after that Fulham away, Everton. I mean, it's really you could hold Evan Nilsson until the new year. I have dropped Semenyo. I had to make room for Saka. So I do think it's a nice. Semenyo, talk about someone who's completely under the radar now, right? Because he sat out this match with yellow card accumulation. So at least that's off the table now. And he always looks good. Like I do think that like we're sort of. I don't think we're in full on like. Like total, like never performs to the underlying territory with.
He's
with
not
Semenyo.
Anthony Knockhart territory yet.
No, and he's got 4 goals and an assist on the season too. So it's not like he's been a total flop by any means, right? So I do like Bournemouth. I think that could be a really fun match. Actually, I think Bournemouth Spurs could be a really fun one to watch.
This podcast is brought to you by Squarespace. Squarespace is the all-in-one website platform designed to help you stand out and succeed online. Whether you're just starting out or you're scaling your business, Squarespace gives you everything you need to claim your domain, showcase your offerings with a professional website, grow your brand, and get paid all in one place. With Squarespace's collection of cutting-edge design tools, anyone can build a custom online presence that perfectly fits their design or their business. Start with Blueprint AI. That's Squarespace's AI-enhanced website builder to get a fully custom website with just a few steps. From there, get discovered fast with integrated Squarespace SEO tools. Every website is optimized to be indexed with meta descriptions, an auto-generated sitemap, and more, so you show up more often on search engines and bring in more of your ideal customers. Head to squarespace.com/insight to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain using the code INSIGHT. That's squarespace.com/insight to save 10% off your first purchase.
Just to round out the alternate forward options, going back to Nicholas Jackson and Chelsea, their fixtures, as mentioned, Southampton in game week 14, followed by Spurs away. Then it's Brentford home, Everton away, Fulham at home, Ipswich away, Palace away. Is the incredible run for Chelsea. And it does feel like going in for Nicholas Jackson, it's going to feel weird. Especially for managers who played early last season when Jackson looked like fool's gold. But his finishing has certainly improved. He's still walking that yellow card tightrope, but these fixtures are enticing me. I do think I'm going to get caught in this spider web of that Jackson has set for me.
I know. I think so too. I mean, like, would you, let's see. So Chelsea, Southampton, Spurs. Gosh, they have a great run too. Yeah. I mean, the 4 yellows does throw me off a little bit. I mean, I guess the question is basically, do you think that Nicholas Jackson is worth the premium, right, at $8 million over the Cunha, Strand Larson, Evan Nilsson options that we just mentioned a moment ago, right? Because it's a pretty big premium. I'm talking about, I don't know, like roughly $2.5 million more than them.
It genuinely depends on the makeup of your team. I'm in a situation right now where I have what million do I have to play with? I have 4.9 million to play with. Say like after game week 14, I want to spend 1 million to move Mbomo to Bruno Fernandes.
Yep.
That still leaves me roughly 4 million to spend on like moving Chris Wood to Nicholas Jackson. And then the only thing I really want to resolve further is getting an Arsenal defender.
Right.
And I still would have enough. Yeah. I would still have enough money for that. So for me, my particular setup, I think it's helped that I'm really light in my defense. Like Pedro Porro is my most expensive guy, and then he turns into basically timber for free. So I do think that it's not a big enough premium on Nico Jackson where it should scare you off. I think it still allows room to do most everything else that you would want to do, assuming you have that 3 midfielder premium setup.
I think so as well. I think just to throw one last forward in the mix, because it is nice to have a fresh wave of. I don't know about you, but it feels like even more than last season, like there are like waves and waves of interesting options this season, right? Yeah, last year it felt like it was like you're picking from a pool of 14 players or something like that. It feels like the pool is much broader this season, which is definitely I think making for a more interesting kind of strategic season. But I will say Xerxes came on. Didn't come on. He played the full 90. Got 2 goals for Man United today. Man United look refreshed. I'm not even going to talk about Rashford. Rashford is not. We need to see a sustained run of him carrying before we will.
Are we seeing it now? We're not sure. What's interesting about Amorim is that he, in his first 3 games in charge, has started 3 different guys in the number 9. Rashford, his first match in the Premier League, and then midweek in the Europa League, it was Højlund up front, and he performed, scored a brace, and then it was Xerxes. It's fun to see him trying these options, and he's actually getting like effort out of this Manchester United team.
It's so interesting. I know. I guess it's like they're only human, right? It's like, how could you not? It just changes your perspective to have like a new voice in the room. Like whether it's, whether it comes down to the new manager, or it's just a psychological like you just feel kind of lifted having somebody new in there. But the one player though that we talked about him last week, and I guess I just like have no. I guess eventually maybe I turn Rodgers into him. I don't know. It's like. It's not a huge priority just because I feel like I have other problems to solve. But Ahmad with 2 more assists today, 4.9 million. He's not going to stay at that price for much longer, right? I think that now gives him 5 assists in the last 3 matches, and
he's making it look easy too. That's like my feeling watching him is it's just like, wow, it just looks very effortless for him. Yeah,
and let's see. He is it actually 5? No, I want to just double check that. I think it's. I guess it's 4. Yeah, but still 4 in the last 3 matches, along with 5 bonus points, right, to go along with those assists. So that, which I think is a good sign too, because the bonus points mean that we're talking about chances created here, right? It's not like one of these sort of rebounded shot kind of assists, right? It's like
a square ball deep in the midfield and somebody just makes an incredible run on their own.
Yeah, exactly. That's the kind of thing that Mbeumo didn't get an assist for yesterday. So all right, well that's where we are with Man United. They do play Arsenal away, as you noted at the top of the pod, so it does make me a little less eager to bring in like a Bruno Fernandes, right? Like although. The defenses are all so shaky this season that you could just go ahead and get Bruno. He'll probably do something in that match.
Right. Yeah, I do think that United score against Arsenal, and that just like the occasion of a midweek fixture feels like it's bound to happen.
I think there's a pretty good chance of that as well. I think once you look past the Arsenal fixture, it's not a. They do have a Man City match coming up in a couple of. I guess that's actually this next weekend. But you've got Forest, Bournemouth, and Wolves in 3 of the next 4. So I think it's a pretty good run from an attacking point of view, especially if you look past the midweek matches. Sure. All right, Brennan. So that brings us to our decisions. Once again, we've got 48 hours from now, game week 14 is going to kick off. Where are you leaning? Do you want to actually share your screen with me real quick? And I can see.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Yeah, and I've kind of like threaded my plans, my ideas throughout this pod. So just looking at my team on screen, it's between Chris Wood and Mbeumo. Mbeumo to Bruno Fernandes, or Chris Wood to Nicholas Jackson. And just as we went through all of those sort of fixture runs, including Chelsea and Manchester United, just feels like Nicholas Jackson, he could price rise after we're done recording here. Chris Wood, I brought in 3 weeks ago, and the 9-pointer this weekend is all I've gotten from him, but I will be grateful for that, and I will take it. And the Forest fixtures upcoming just don't feel great to me. City away, Manchester United away, back to back, then Villa, Brentford away, Spurs. So it just feels like a good time to cash in on whatever money I've made from him. And this is the sign of having a good season, right, Josh? Like you get points from a player and then you're able to immediately get rid of them.
Sort of make a bit of a luxury move. Right? Yeah.
So defense
solid gold-plated moves, Brandon.
But I don't know. Like, what do you think about my defense here? Like, it's it's not a sturdy defense, and I'm missing like there could
so
be
you got
moves.
Konsa. Yeah, so Konsa home to Brentford, Mikolenko home to Wolves, Robertson home to Brighton. Sorry, your screen is very small. I gotta bring it up here in size. Wout Faes, who you wouldn't start, and then Porro away to Bournemouth. So you probably would. What would you start? You start Porro, Robinson. And
Here,
Mikolenko,
let me share my actual bus team here. That's probably simpler. So right now, I mean, I'm complaining about my defense, and I'm looking at game week 14 starting 4 across the back.
Yeah.
If I were to make the move for Nico Jackson, then I think I would drop Robinson to the bench. And I don't typically do this where I would drop a defender in my fantasy team just because I have the opposite forward in João Pedro. But I don't really see much in the defenders this week where I think they kind of all have an equal shot at points. So I'm just going to roll the dice and say João Pedro finally gets me some points and Robinson should sit on the bench.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Even Mikolenko, even getting that -1, I do feel like Everton at home are a slightly different animal. So
then you'd look at this team saying Chris Wood is Nico Jackson. And, I kind of like it.
Yeah, I like it. I like it too. I guess I probably honestly, well, I don't know. It's tricky. I mean, you have the money. I guess like my feeling, what would give me pause if I were in your position would just be whether I would want to move Wood to an Evan Nilsson or Acuna, and just save some money to maybe like turn like Rodgers into Bruno. Right. Like, and sort of, and I mean, I don't know, like Wood, I don't know, like, I guess it's not going to cost you that much to move Wood to Jackson. So maybe it's like, I'm still like struggling with Jackson a little bit. I don't know why, cause he's been so good, but it's like, I still don't quite fully believe it, but I mean, you can't get much better than Southampton at home. So I don't really knock the move. I guess that's just that's the one thing that would be whether I want to spend that much money on Jackson if I can get a similar quality forward for and save 2.5 million.
Sure enough. But yeah, I think we'll save the captaincy discussion for a bit later. But bus team, I've got the armband on Palmer. I think that will be the runaway captaincy favorite, and Mo gets the vice out of just sheer respect. So what about you? So I guess like just to finish that, I'm maybe looking to spend one free transfer, of which I have one. No burning points or anything like that. So where does that put you?
Yeah, I'm in a similar spot, I think, where I have the ability to maybe do the famous luxury transfer as well. I did pop my team into review just out of curiosity, like see what they like, what the kind of algorithmic suggestion was. And that was to hold your transfer. And I don't hate that. I mean, looking at my squad, I mean, assuming that Gabriel is healthy, I kind of like my squad. I do have the captaincy on Palmer at the moment, Saka as vice captain. I think between Palmer, Salah, and Saka, they're all pretty good options. I just think that like Palmer just, it's just, I mean, they're all good options. He has the easiest fixture. I actually wonder if Saka is actually the best captain.
He's got the home fixture.
Yep, he's got the home fixture. But I think Palmer takes it. It's hard for me to. We talk about floor and ceiling a lot in this pod, and I do feel like he's got arguably the strongest floor. So I've got a five across the middle in the formation I've got Rodgers starting right now, home to Brentford. He was subbed off early in the match, but definitely some concern with him. I mean, we're looking now at 3 consecutive blanks and declining minutes too. Like it's, he's subbed off. I mean, even just going back to game week 9, subbed off in the 56th minute there.
And he's starting every match in the league, in Europe. And you wonder, like, for a player who's relatively young and new to this like level, what burnout is going to feel like for him.
Yeah, but the early sub, if he had played the full 90, I guess I might be a little bit more worried about him. It's actually a little bit how I feel about Raul Jimenez, who I'm benching over in favor of Vardy. Is I do wonder if at midweek is, especially with Jimenez in his 30s, like is this the match to rest him for Mooney's and maybe he comes on as a sub and then starts at the weekend next weekend.
Sure.
So that would be the move. If I were to make a move, it would probably be at the it would either be Mbomo to Mbomo to Bruno, but I don't love that just obviously because it's Arsenal away. It's arguably like to me, it's just like that feels like that's almost too much of a luxury move, right? Like like bringing in Bruno before what might be Man United's hardest fixture of the season, right? Mm-hmm. Like I just don't really get the appeal of that. I'd rather rather just save my transfer if that were the move I want to do the most. Gvardiol is I suppose a bit of a risk there as well. I mean, the thing is he didn't play today, right? And I think he'll play too. I just think there was nothing in the performance from Man City today that made me think, oh yeah, they're going to stick with that back line.
What did Manola Dargis say about
Eli
Roth's performance in Inglourious Basterds?
Just one word: dreadful. Dreadful, and Eli Roth, dreadful. So that was basically everybody. Ake, Akanji, everybody was. It was wait, did Ake play? Akanji played.
They both played.
They both played. Yeah. And so I do think the Gvardiol starts, and I suppose I have to play him in that case. Mm-hmm. And then I actually have Greaves and Konsa on the bench right now, so I like Konsa as a decent backup option. Greaves actually may be arguably the better player, but I am always reluctant to start a player who's been injured for a long time because the worry is, does he get subbed on in like the 85th minute as a kind of like get the legs back sort of start. Yep. And so even though in theory I actually might like to start Greaves, I might prefer Greaves over Konsa in my bench order. He's last bench just for kind of safety purposes. So this is a squad that if I just straight up forgot about the deadline, I'd be fine with this team. And if I were to make that luxury move, like Raul to Cunha, I suppose I probably would bench Mbomo as well. But again, I still don't love it because I just think returns are. I just think returns are still imminent for Mbomo. Like to me, I think it's fine to bench him, but I don't think it's I don't think it's like a open and shut that you should bench Mbomo this week.
Yeah. I mean, yes, it's the great talisman theory, and there he is.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like you said, maybe he gets a pen, right, or something like that.
I'm getting Josh this sense of optimism coming from the cheaters on this episode. We've both got green arrows. We've got we've settled this whole premium player issue for our teams. We're happy with that solution.
We're both in a zone where we could have a couple of bad game weeks and still be in the top million, and that's always a good feeling.
Right.
Yeah. I feel like last year you and I were just like we were getting halfway through the season and we were both like in the 1 or 2 million range, and I was like, this might just never happened this year. Yeah,
it was a real scrap to get into the top 500K last season.
Yeah, exactly. So, I suppose it is nice. And I also, again, I just think that the strategic challenges, like the number of options that are available to us this season are part of the appeal for me. I feel like there are lots of ways to go with transfers and decisions. You can hold some weeks, you can move. There are forward options, there are defender options, which I think does make it a lot more fun. So let's move on, Brandon. Let's do just a quick look ahead to. We wanted this to be a pretty fast pod because of the quick turnaround, and I do want to look just quickly at the fixtures for Game Week 14. But before we do, Brandon, do you want to do a quick shout out for our Patreon supporters?
Absolutely. Patreon.com/always cheating. That's where you can go to get more Always Cheating content. It's a great way to say thanks to me and Josh for this podcast week in, week out. And you get a second podcast every week ad free. That's closer to the game week deadlines. We also have a booming Discord with lots of conversation with fellow managers who are always doing Rate My Teams. And if you don't want to talk about fantasy, just go there to talk about cheese. That's what most people do anyway.
Yeah. We have a new producer that we forgot to shout out last week.
Right. Francis Mann, who is also the founder of the Always Cheating community team, which is one of many different little mini leagues that you can get involved in. And I think that's my favorite part about the Patreon and the Discord is I am in so many fun leagues season to season because of what the Always Cheating Patreon community puts together. So there's lots to get your hands dirty with there. Yeah. And we're entering that holiday season. And if you're feeling festive and want to throw a few bucks in the tip jar for me and Josh, we'd love to see you at the Patreon, patreon.com/always cheating.
Yeah, think about it like the NPR pledge drive just started. It's December 1st, so it's a great month to become a patron because not only do you have the festive fixtures ahead, but you get the full month ahead of you as a Patreon supporter. So it's a great time to join. And I also did want to quickly shout out a couple of new members because there's the beginning of the month. Shout out to Aditya Adyatama, Sumantri, Adyatama, Brandon, Adyatama, Sumantri,
welcome.
Nick Chequin, James Entwistle, and Daniel S. So a couple of new members, Brandon, that
nice.
I wanted to shout out on the pod today.
We welcome you.
Yes, very much so. And once again, that's patreon.com/always cheating. If you feel like you're in the pledging spirit, show your support for the cheater. Yeah. We need to have an annual option. Like I feel like there needs to be like a Substack style thing where you can do a. By the way, if anyone has suggestions, I am a little stuck on the Substack, Brandon. I started one for always cheating. Mm-hmm. I am finding that we kind of cover my big thoughts when we do this pod. Yeah. And then the next day I feel like I'm kind of recycling my takes. Yeah. And so I think what I want to maybe try to do is something that's closer to the deadline. But I feel like I need a hook or an angle or something like that. Yep. And if listen, if you're out there listening and you want to use it for yourself, then don't tell me. But if you're not, keep it for yourself. But if you're like, you know what, I'm never going to do this. I think this would be a fun idea. Hit us up on the Discord or send us an email or hit us up on Blue Sky or wherever, and just say, hey, wouldn't this be a fun thing to do for Substack? Because I'm kind of hunting for new ideas. I enjoy the act of writing these, but I just need something that's a more kind of sustainable.
No reheated takes, Josh.
Yeah, exactly. The last couple of times I was like, man, I spent 10 hours writing when I said in 40 minutes on the pod, and so not 10 hours, but a couple hours. Yeah. All right. So game week 14, Brandon, I'm going to pop it up here just that you and I can both look at it as we're talking here. It kicks off on Tuesday. We have, it's a real, I just muted my mic instead of sharing
I can hear
the screen.
You now.
Yep. It's a real, like hors d'oeuvres kind of starter here, Brandon. We've got Ipswich, Palace, Leicester, West Ham to kick things off on Tuesday. And so I guess let's just go day by day here. So again, I think that Vardy is a decent start. Bonanote again, I thought had a nice goal. Every time I watch him, I'm impressed. He is, and he's on loan from Brighton. It's just crazy how Brighton's ability to find talented players so talented they can't even fit them into their squad. It's ridiculous. It feels like he could have done a job for them this year.
I think so,
I think we will. We'll see him next season there for sure.
Yeah, it's a fun day, Tuesday, for budget strikers. So you will start Vardy, I will start Liam Delap, and they both are home against not quality opposition in Palace and West Ham. No disrespect, but there was a bit of disrespect sort of baked in there. But I hope it's
Palace's play has been disrespectful to us, the fans.
Yeah, that's true. Turnabout is fair play, Palace.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think it's a fun day for the attack. I mean, it's just for defense. I'm not sure. Like, what do you rate West Ham's chances here? I mean, they have proven, once a month that they are actually a real football team, West Ham. But most of the time they are just they're bad.
They are like the least interesting and least fun team to me in the Premier League this season. I mean, it's hard to even have a thought about them, right? Because I know disrespect meant to their supporters or whatever, but it's just a bummer, right? It's like the whole team just bums me, and I don't get it. I mean, they were in Europe last season, right? We saw them play in the Europa League. Like it was,
I forgot about that.
Yeah, and like. And in this squad, it's like they didn't change any. They brought in a 36-year-old striker or whatever who was like immediately injured. And
Wan-Bissaka's changed the game. He's got 2 goals and 2 now.
Wan-Bissaka is good. I mean, adding scoring to his game is actually incredible. I guess it's like he's like. This is like his see, I actually could do this tour. I mean, there was no evidence that he never did any of this at Palace or Man United. And Emerson too. I mean, so I don't know. Like there are some interesting players there, but just not enough to
Totally.
to get excited about it all. So I think these could both be fun matches, just because honestly they're again they're 4 bad teams.
Yeah,
right?
It could be
and
like 2-2 and 2-2 between these two matches, and
exactly.
that sounds like a fun way to spend a Tuesday afternoon.
Double
Tuesday,
relegation
2
battler.
for 2, 2-2s for 2 on Tuesday.
Yep. And then Wednesday we've got let's see, Everton Wolves, Man City Forest, Newcastle Liverpool. Newcastle Liverpool should be fun. God, Liverpool now with an 11-point lead. It's amazing.
I mean,
and
Liverpool might just they should wipe the floor with Newcastle, who have looked horrible the last couple of weeks.
Are you giving any thought to Salah captaincy for 14?
Why not though? Given what I've just said,
he just feels third best. I mean, he feels third best of the 3 grid options that you and I both in our own squads had to pick from. I like Palmer the most, hosting away to Southampton. Saka just because he's so good at home, and then Salah. So I mean, they're all fantastic. And honestly, it's not like we're betraying Salah here, right? Because he was outscored by both those 2 players this very week.
We don't want to be we don't want to get the balls of cotton wool award in the mini league mate dossier. We have to change up our captaincy every once in a while just to avoid that moniker.
Yeah, exactly.
So I want to talk a little bit more about this City Forest match, because I think it's a very interesting fantasy match. Tell me your score prediction for this one.
2-1 City, maybe?
Yeah, that's exactly where I'm at as well.
Yeah.
It feels like one that it has a lot of stakes for fantasy teams, because people are either single double up on Nottingham Forest defense. I'm trying to figure out, is it worth keeping Chris Wood? And City have done nothing, absolutely nothing, to warrant any trust in real life or in fantasy. And I feel like it's kind of like both of these teams are kind of meeting right in the middle for me. And it's like a 2-1 City or even a 1-1 draw, just given how absolutely awful City's form is.
The argument for City too, and we were talking about this a little in the Patreon pod a couple of days ago, is just that I was reading, I think it was in The Athletic or something, they're talking about the kind of pressing style of Man City and how they don't give up many chances, but the ones that they do are high quality, right? And they've always been kind of able to get away with it through some strong keeping by Ederson, and obviously even a really good chance tends to be, it's still not, even a great chance might be a 33% chance of scoring, right? And so the thing about Chris Wood is that he is incredible at converting high percentage chances, right? This is sort of his specialty, right? It's like you give him, you give him a ball in a good spot basically, and he's going to score. And so I'm not saying that you shouldn't make I think your planned move of him out for some forward, whoever it may be, whether it's Jack. Well, I just mean I was advocating for maybe a non-Jackson option,
sure.
but I think that still makes sense. But I think if you had other problems in your squad, I don't know, let's say somebody gets injured, somebody pulls up in training in the next 48 hours. I don't think starting Chris Wood is a disaster.
I agree with this take totally. Okay, so I think that's a good perspective on that fixture.
Yeah.
What else do we have to talk about?
Yeah,
here?
Arsenal, Man United, Villa, Brentford. We actually talked a bit about Villa, Brentford already, but I think the Arsenal, Man United match is interesting because Arsenal, they just scored 5 goals in one half, actually, which the second time that's happened, right? Because didn't Chelsea score 5 in the when Palmer had his Palmer quad trick, whatever
right.
it's called.
Well, I always get that match confused with the Wolves match, which is when Palmer got the hat trick of assists.
Yeah, I think it was Brighton, wasn't it, where they scored?
You're right.
In the half?
You're right.
So I think Arsenal clearly the attack is clicking again. I think they feel like, especially with Odegaard back, that they are back to the squad that we kind of thought we'd see all season, right? And honestly, they are. They look great. And despite conceding a couple, so and then Man United look like they've got. I mean, to me, I guess the point is, this is probably the premier match at midweek, right? It's the most interesting match from a kind of it's the make fantasy, or is it the make fantasy? I guess it's just the pure watch of removing fantasy for a second. It's
the
just
narratives
if you had to watch one match, it'd be this one.
Right. The narratives are so compelling, you can probably put fantasy aside.
Right.
As hard as that can be.
Yeah, but also there will be a lot of fantasy. Like it's got something for everybody. And so that'll be a fun one. And then, Villa Brentford, I think will be, I think an interesting match as well, just because Villa are in a really rough run of form and Brentford are just so well coached that I think this one could be, I don't know, I like 2-2. I think this could end up being like a 2-2 match, this Villa Brentford match.
Yeah, I'm planning to start Konsa just with the hope that Emery, being a defensively savvy manager, sets that as his priority of, the future success of Villa has got to start from the back here. Now, with Emi Martinez possibly being out with the hand injury, it's easier. Like Martin Olsen, we've all had great fantasy moments where Martin Olsen was the victim.
I mean, it could work the other way where that makes them set up even more defensively.
Could be, right.
Because they don't, they doesn't have faith he's going to get bailed out. And then Fulham Brighton on Thursday and Bournemouth Spurs on Thursday. So again, I think the game week 14 ends with what I think will be a really fun match in Bournemouth Spurs. I think that this match to me is another one where I think it could be super high scoring. Like I think it could be like 3-3 or 3-4 or something like that. I think you could see a ton of goals in this one.
It's funny, like Tuesday is two matchups that could be high scoring because we're not high on any of those teams. And then Thursday, it's like four really good teams going at it. And what could also be high scoring. Totally agree.
Yeah. So a fun midweek. I mean, it's almost a shame these are, I don't know. I'm gonna have to figure out some plans for these, Brandon. It's the holidays, though. Things tend to slow down a little bit over the holidays. I'm in theory in my actual office in my hashtag real life job for Tuesday and Thursday. So we'll see, Brandon. Let's see if I
feel a cavity coming on here.
Yeah, exactly. Is a cavity? Is there another? Do I need a screening of some kind? Like who knows? And I got my first CAT scan last week.
Ooh, cool.
That was scary. Yeah, you ever had one of those?
I've never
before?
had a CAT scan, but I understand. Like if you're claustrophobic at all, it's terrifying.
Yeah, and it's not as bad as I thought it was going to be. For some reason, I thought you were like in like an actual like tomb of sorts. It's more like a thing that kind of just goes over you and you lay down. But yeah, no, it was honestly, it was just like I am approaching proper. Yeah. I hate to even say breathe it into existence, Brandon, but the word middle-aged is starting to creep into my vocabulary a little bit.
Why are people so interested in our colons all of a sudden?
Yeah, exactly. I haven't had it. Thankfully, I'm still under the. If you had one, have you had one of those yet?
Just because I haven't gone to a doctor in the last year is really the only reason I've escaped that.
Yeah. Mine was my cholesterol is high, like everybody on this, like everybody in the North Americas. And so they're like, well, just do a screening and we'll see if it's like clinging to your, it's all disgusting stuff, like, do you have cholesterol in your heart or whatever? And thankfully, I do not. And so it's just, I'm just eating too many burgers. So let's cut down. Let's end on that note, Brandon.
Yep.
Cut down on your burgers. Captain Cole Palmer, best of luck to everybody. We want to turn this thing around real fast that everybody can listen ahead of Tuesday. So best of luck to everybody in game week 14. I think it'll be a lot of fun. We will do a Patreon pod on Thursday evening, so that'll be a chance for us to look ahead to the fixtures after that. And I guess we'll go from there.
Fantastic. And as always, big thanks to our producer patrons. If you want to get involved as noted in Patreon, go to patreon.com/alwayscheating. We'd love to see you there. Our producers, our heroes, Mike DePietro, Trevor Ingerson, Dave Wegner, Lodahl, our buddy Chris Howell, Andy Penn, Nick Wright, Lazarus Janos, Jesse Halstead, Brian Chin, Bobbas Kuhn, Blair Jacobson, Todd Byerly, Andy Portlock, Dan Parsons, Terrence O'Donnell, Kerry Swanson, Jefferson Turner, Ezzy Does It, Francis Moore, Sam Shower, Craig Jackson, Caleb Robbie, Brian Clark, Thomas Tislov, Fred Jacobson, Gareth H., Shalanav Kadaki, Rishi Nigam, Noah and Louise, Travis Grant, Linus Vennerstrom, Matthew Skinner, Ben Coombs, Eric Kite, Rune Sandberg, the three Jims, James Murray Wood, James C., and James Holland, Scully, Craig at Total Mass Tutoring, and our newest Patreon producer, Francis Mann. Rate, review, subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Hail cheaters. No, you don't want that. That means nothing to us anymore. All you want to do is go over to bluesky.com where we're thriving. There's a great fantasy chat going over there. We are on Blue Sky, always cheating FPL.
Yep. I'm just long hauling it on Blue Sky now, Brandon. I'm just like,
cool.
If people come and go. I mean, the thing is, we have literally 1/25th as many followers as we do on the old Twitter account, and we get 10 times as much engagement from literally anything on there.
Right.
And they don't throttle links. So hey, let's
it's engagement concentrate, and we love that. If you missed any of that information and you want to know more, just go to our website, alwayscheating.com. Hey, just a quick plug for our digital shop. We got t-shirts and pint glasses and whatnot. If you've got somebody I can't imagine somebody's listening to this podcast thinking, I've got somebody on my list who would enjoy something from the Always Cheating shop.
You never know.
But you never know. But if you are making a list for somebody to give you gifts, check that out.
Yeah, I like it. And that's it. That's it for everybody. And I guess like the pledge drive thing too. So if you get a Christmas bonus or something like that and you want to support the cheaters, that would be great. You can go to patreon.com/cheating. It's very affordable. I mean, it really is, especially at the lowest levels. It's cost less than a cup of coffee. So we will talk to you soon, everybody. Good luck this weekend or good luck at midweek, I should say. And we'll be back on Thursday. Bye.